There was an idea that we wanted to keep a fairly simple material palette. And so when any client sort of comes to us, oftentimes they'll have a series of precedents that they'll bring of projects that they've seen that they really love, or parts of projects. And we try to synthesize that and come up with a material palette. And in this case, it became really a minimal kind of container for all the objects that they've collected over the years. And so the black and white palette really became a key point in the initial generation of the project. They're an artistic couple, and so they did want to have their own sort of home offices. And so that was something that we knew that we had to include from the start of the project. And it made sense to separate the kind of public capacity of the house from the living portion of the house. It's an empty nester sort of home. And so privacy wasn't as big as a concern. That afforded us the opportunity to create a space upstairs that was a little bit more open and free-flowing, and we looked at using transparency as much as possible for a couple of reasons. I think one was to ensure that the upstairs space felt quite open and more spacious because you didn't have walls blocking views of anything. And so what we ended up doing was using a film that would be placed over the washroom area that would provide some degree of privacy, but also provide light transmission through there. Over the course of your lifetime, you build up a lot of, stuff. Simply because of the way the footprint was, it seemed to make more sense for us to build in a wall of millwork where you could, stash all these items out of view and keep things as uncluttered as possible. With the inner city houses, I think there's a challenge with limiting distance, right? So typically you can, people max out their lots, meaning that there's a 4-foot setback from the side properties. And so that meant that the front of house and the back of house would be the only opportunity to really get a lot of light into the space. And so with this house, we wanted to make sure that the front facade was more glass. We really wanted to bring the exterior in. What we decided to do was actually set the front door back a little bit, the depth of the living room, and then sort of carve it into the side of that block. And this is where the material of the project came to play, is that stucco allowed for something that felt like it was carved out of one piece. The kind of upper window on the second floor was sculpted from a perspective of the outside, so that it looks like the house sort of folds around it. And also there was a view towards the downtown from that upper floor. And so it became an idea where we created this sort of focal window that's connected to the lower level, but separate as well. With the back elevation, because it's a very steep site, the idea was that we would open up the rear elevation to be at the same level as the office elevation. So you have these two panes of glass that are connecting, and through that, it would link that middle space between the upper floor and the office floor. So it's really trying to extend that space further, particularly in summer, when the doors on the studio are open up completely as a kind of large sliding glass window, which would allow the studio to expand out to incorporate that courtyard as part of that extension of space. And so the rear southern facade follows the same logic as the house southern facade, where we would have that all glass, and in the studio's case, both the upper floor and the lower floor have these really large openable windows that would stitch in that courtyard when weather allowed for that to happen.